All right, let's bring in Trump campaign senior advisor Steve Cortes. Steve, thank you for being with us tonight. Good to have you.
Good evening.
I'd like to start with something that we just mentioned a moment ago, this report that is in Axios this evening that essentially says that the president has told confidants that he will declare victory on Tuesday night if it looks like he's, quote, ahead, according to these three sources that are familiar with the president's private comments. Is that true?
Look, I don't know what kind of sources they're using. If it's clear that we've won, then yes, of course the president will declare victory. But if it's not clear, then he won't.
Well, he said ahead. If it looks like he's ahead.
Well, yes, I don't believe that's accurate.
Okay.
Right.
Well, that's one way to address it, that it's not accurate. And there are been stories out there. Steve, where do you see the race today?
Look, our closing argument is that this president is the president for a great American renaissance. You can see it in the rallies, by the way, today. And if you compare the events that Joe Biden's having versus Trump's events, Trump is an inspiring leader. And we're really staging pep rallies for America, encouraging the citizens of this great land to embrace this economic revival that's afoot and to believe that it can continue and accelerate into 2021. And conversely, if you look at the Joe Biden events, you really see an angry man who is screaming at cars and talking of a dark winter and doom, often speaking in garbled syntax that could only be described aptly as pig Latin. So there's a real stark contrast here and a real choice for Americans. We like the momentum. We think the momentum is going our way, largely because the economic momentum in this country is going our way. And we believe that is by far the number one issue on voters' minds, and we have the most compelling value proposition to offer there on economic prosperity.
Steve, talk to us a little bit about the path. You know, we see that Joe Biden tomorrow, 4 more stops in Pennsylvania. I mean, they basically are putting all of their chips at this moment on Pennsylvania. I believe that President Obama is going to be in Florida tomorrow for the Biden team. Tell us about your strategy in terms of where the president is making these myriad of stops, something like 14 in 2.5 days.
Right. Listen, we want to compete, of course, in every battleground state. And we have a lot of optionality, we think, when we look at the electoral map. But I really am most confident in us doing extremely well in the Sun Belt, primarily because of Hispanics. We have reached out to Hispanics in a really respectful and intentional way, quite a contrast to Joe Biden, who went down to Florida to an Hispanic event and played Despacito on his cell phone. That's not a way to actually win over Hispanics. But we're doing extremely well in both public and private polling with Hispanic Americans. And I believe that's going to solidify 2 states we won last time that we need again, which are Arizona and Florida. I think it also puts Nevada and potentially New Mexico in play. So I'm looking for a Sun Belt sweep. I think we're going to secure all of those states, and that then puts enormous pressure on Joe Biden because he has to run the table in the upper Midwest, something we don't believe he's capable of doing, particularly if you look at Ohio and Pennsylvania, 2 critical states. Both of those places are major fracking players. They will not choose Joe Biden, who threatens the energy independence of America. It's terrible for our economic prosperity. It's terrible for our national security. And it's a particularly acutely important issue in both PA and Ohio.
We're going to talk to a Biden representative in just a bit. But one last thing on the closing argument and part of it. Friday, the president said something that perked up a lot of people's ears, and it was reacted to by Democrats on the Sunday shows. It has to do with doctors and money. Take a listen.
You know, our doctors get more money if somebody dies from COVID. You know that, right? Now they'll say, oh, it's terrible what he said. But that's true. It's like $2,000 more. So you get more money.
These people have been risking their lives since the beginning of this crisis. It tells you everything you need to know about the difference between the Trump campaign and the Biden campaign, and between Donald Trump and Joe Biden.
So react to that, Steve.
Well, listen, I don't know how the billing works, so I can't speak to that part of it. I don't know what the president was citing there. But what I do think is important regarding the virus, a couple things. Number one, the president's record of crisis management on the virus is actually superb. Corporate media, unfortunately, has largely succeeded in pushing a myth that the president was somehow inattentive or somehow asleep at the wheel. Quite the opposite was true. He took aggressive, early, and really in many ways massive action, particularly when it came to the largest government-mandated manufacturing campaign in this country since World War II, to produce things like PPE and testing capacity and therapeutics that we think are ultimately going to lead to a permanent cure. So I think that's important. What's also important right now is our posture versus the virus. We do not believe that we should be living in fear, in irrational fear of the virus and of each other. We will not let it dominate our lives. The president is showing the country how to come back strongly and how to manage effectively the risks of the virus while getting back toward normalcy.
But you think it was a mistake to talk about that on the closing pitch?
No, I don't think it was a mistake. I just don't know the particulars of how billing works.